Hey boy, what are you doing with my mama's car? We're about to pull back the curtain on some of the most controversial women to ever step foot in Hollywood. These aren't just actresses, they're lightning rods for scandal, surrounded by whispers, betrayal, and a darkness that hid behind the glamour. They made headlines not just for their beauty or their talent, but for their ruthless ambition, shocking choices, and downright wickedness. So here it is, my pick for the 20 most evil actresses in Hollywood history. Let's dive in. You don't know how much I've missed all of you, and I promise I'll never leave you again. Because after Salome, we'll make another picture, and another, and another. Number 20. Clara Bow, that girl who vanished into exile. Clara Bow, Hollywood's original it girl, lit up the silent screen with her magnetic charm. But when sound films took over, her once thriving career came crashing down. More than just the transition to talkies, it was Clara's internal battles and bold personality that pushed her away from the spotlight. Behind the glamour, she struggled with mental health, but what truly made her an outlier was her fierce independence and raw honesty, traits that didn't sit well in an industry obsessed with image control. Hollywood studios wanted polished starlets. Clara gave them unfiltered truth. Her thick Brooklyn accent, colorful slang, and refusal to play the obedient ingenue made her a sensation and a threat. In one fiery interview, she declared, "I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I'm not here to be a puppet. I'm here to be real." That line captured her spirit perfectly. On set, she gained a reputation for being blunt and hard to direct. Stories swirled about intense clashes with directors, heated debates over scripts, and one unforgettable moment when she stormed off the set mid-shoot, halting production entirely. Her relationship with the public was just as fiery. Clara challenged reporters and fans alike, refusing to be boxed in by their expectations. The press labeled her tempestuous, a title she wore like armor, even as it further isolated her from the Hollywood machine. Clara Bow wasn't just a star. She was a spark, too wild, too real, and too ahead of her time for a town built on illusions. Number 19. Dorothy Dandridge, the tragic talent. Dorothy Dandridge was more than just a Hollywood star, she was a pioneer. As the first African-American woman ever nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress, her rise marked a historic breakthrough in a deeply segregated industry. But behind the glitz and groundbreaking accolades was a woman weighed down by the relentless pressure of blazing a trail where none existed before. Hollywood, still clinging to its racial biases, often made her feel like an outsider. And though Dandridge was admired for her grace and talent, many described her as distant, even aloof. In truth, that distance was often a shield, a quiet defense against the prejudice and pain she faced daily. Her deep focus on her craft sometimes created a wall between her and her co-stars, a wall mistaken for arrogance when it was really just survival. Her personal life was no less turbulent. Failed marriages, financial hardship, and battles with mental health haunted her behind the scenes. These private struggles inevitably followed her onto the set, leading to moments where she withdrew from those around her. What some saw as coldness was often a cry for space. A space to breathe, to endure, to hold herself together. As the roles dried up and the promises of Hollywood faded, Dorothy became more guarded, more selective, and increasingly misunderstood. The industry that once celebrated her ultimately sidelined her. And the loneliness of that reality painted a false picture of a woman who was never cold, only hurting. 18. Gloria Swanson, the diva who refused to fade. Gloria Swanson wasn't the type to slip quietly into the shadows. Her fall from the dazzling heights of silent film royalty to the uncertain terrain of the talkie era was anything but graceful. It was dramatic, defiant, and deeply human. In her prime, Swanson reigned as the undisputed queen of the silent screen, her presence so powerful it didn't need words. But when Hollywood found its voice, Swanson struggled to find hers. As the film industry embraced sound, Swanson found herself resisting the change. Her frustrations over a fading career spilled into her behavior, earning her a reputation for being difficult, some would say downright impossible. Reports emerged of her clashing with directors and studio heads, refusing to let go of the old ways. She held tightly to the artistry of silent cinema, even as the world around her evolved. One infamous moment during a screen test summed it all up. In a burst of raw emotion, Swanson is said to have shouted, "We had faces then," a line that would echo through Hollywood history. It wasn't just a tantrum, it was a cry of grief for a bygone era she could not let go of. As her career spiraled downward, Swanson's relationships with coworkers became tense. Her insistence on outdated techniques and refusal to adapt made her a challenging presence on set. She became known not just for her legacy, but for her unyielding grip on the past. A true diva to the end, Gloria Swanson wasn't just fighting change, she was fighting to preserve the soul of an art form she helped define. 17. Joan Blondell, the crafty charmer who played by her own rules. Joan Blondell wasn't just a star, she was a strategist, a savvy businesswoman who knew exactly how to navigate the cutthroat world of Hollywood. With sharp negotiation skills and a bold spirit, Blondell built a reputation that extended far beyond the screen. While audiences adored her for effortlessly switching between comedy, drama, and musicals, insiders knew her for something else: her fierce determination and unshakable confidence. Blondell didn't play games when it came to her worth. She was unapologetically assertive, demanding fair pay and respect long before it was common for women in the industry to do so. To some, she was an icon of empowerment. To others, her relentless pursuit of fairness branded her as difficult, even ruthless. Stories of her no-nonsense approach became Hollywood legend. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, even if it meant butting heads with directors or challenging producers. Some found her honesty refreshing. Others whispered behind closed doors, labeling her boldness as brashness. One unforgettable tale paints a vivid picture of her defiance. Blondell reportedly mailed a producer a box of ashes, claiming they were the remains of her last script, a dramatic message that spoke volumes about her refusal to settle for mediocrity. As time marched on, Joan never wavered in her mission to control her career and protect her legacy. But as the tides of Hollywood began to shift, her unyielding principles sometimes put her at odds with studio executives. Still, one thing remained clear: Joan Blondell was a woman who never backed down, a crafty charmer who left her mark not just with talent, but with tenacity. 16. Loretta Young, the starlet who refused to settle. Graceful, poised, and always camera-ready, Loretta Young was more than just a Hollywood beauty. She was a woman on a mission for perfection. But behind that dazzling smile and silver screen charm was a sharp tongue and an iron will that made her both admired and feared in equal measure. Rising swiftly during the golden age of Hollywood, Young's climb to stardom was nothing short of meteoric. Yet, those who worked closely with her soon discovered that Loretta wasn't just chasing fame, she was chasing flawlessness. She had an almost obsessive eye for detail, whether it was the exact cut of a gown or the phrasing of a single line in a script. If something wasn't right, she said so, loud and clear. Rumors of her demanding demeanor began to swirl. Directors, co-stars, and crew members often found themselves walking on eggshells, knowing that one misstep could trigger one of Young's famously icy critiques. While some respected her unwavering dedication to her craft, others struggled to keep up with her unrelenting standards. She didn't just strive for excellence, she expected it from everyone around her. And if a scene didn't meet her expectations, she had no problem letting everyone know. Her clashes with directors and colleagues became the stuff of backstage legend. As time passed, Loretta Young's reputation as Hollywood's most unforgiving perfectionist only grew. In an industry built on compromise, she was the rare force who refused to bend. But love her or loathe her, one thing was undeniable: Loretta Young demanded greatness, and she usually got it. 15. Ginger Rogers, the dancer who refused to be silenced. Ginger Rogers wasn't just a dazzling presence on the dance floor, she was a force of nature, both graceful and unyielding. Best known for her legendary partnership with Fred Astaire, Rogers captivated audiences with her elegance, but behind the scenes, she was far more than just a dancing star. She was a trailblazer, a woman who refused to be overshadowed or silenced in a male-dominated industry. While many adored her on-screen charm, off-screen, Rogers earned a reputation as difficult by those who couldn't handle her boldness. She demanded equal pay at a time when Hollywood was steeped in gender inequality, an act of courage that made her a beacon of empowerment for women in entertainment. Her interviews often bristled with defiance, as she challenged the status quo and pushed for respect, not just applause. Rogers didn't just fight for fair compensation, she pushed back against shallow roles, demanding scripts that showcased her depth and range beyond her dance shoes. Her refusal to conform to Hollywood's expectations of how a woman should behave rubbed many the wrong way. Whispers followed her career, rumors of fiery arguments with studio heads, sharp words exchanged with directors, and bold stands that left some in the industry shaken. But to many she wasn't difficult, she was fearless. Ginger Rogers danced backward in heels, but when it came to fighting for her worth, she led every step of the way. Myrna Loy, the sassy sophisticate who didn't play games. Myrna Loy may have dazzled audiences with her elegance and charm on screen, but behind the camera, she was anything but a pushover. Known in Hollywood as a woman of class and conviction, Loy carried herself with a no-nonsense attitude that some in the industry found intimidating. While she became a beloved icon thanks to her graceful performances, her real-life persona didn't always match the polished characters she played. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, especially when it came to her craft. There are stories of Loy fiercely confronting directors who altered her character without her input, a bold move that spoke volumes about her unwavering dedication to artistic integrity. She had zero tolerance for incompetence or disrespect, and that meant on-set clashes weren't rare. Whether it was a fellow actor, a director, or a crew member, if you didn't meet her standards, she made sure you knew it. Some saw her as difficult. Others saw her as a fearless perfectionist who refused to compromise. But one thing was certain, Myrna Loy never faked who she was. Her blunt honesty and fierce work ethic earned her both admiration and criticism, but it also cemented her legacy as a Hollywood powerhouse who demanded the best, not just from others, but from herself. 13. Hedy Lamarr, the beautiful brain. Hedy Lamarr wasn't just a stunning Hollywood star, she was a genius hiding in plain sight. Often praised for her breathtaking beauty, few knew that behind those iconic eyes was a brilliant inventor determined to be taken seriously. But in an industry obsessed with image over intellect, Hedy's sharp mind became both her greatest strength and biggest curse. From the moment she stepped into Hollywood, Lamarr turned heads and stole scenes, instantly becoming a screen siren. Yet behind the glitz and glamour, she longed for something deeper, recognition for her ideas, not just her looks. She wasn't afraid to speak up, especially when it came to her inventions. That boldness often rubbed people the wrong way. Rumors swirled about her fiery personality. She challenged co-stars, clashed with directors, and stood her ground with producers, especially when she felt her creative vision was being compromised. To some, she was a force of passion and intellect. To others, she came off as arrogant and difficult. But perhaps she was just a woman ahead of her time, fighting to be seen for all she truly was. 12. Tallulah Bankhead, the witty wild child. Tallulah Bankhead wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She was a walking storm of charisma, chaos, and razor-sharp wit. Known as the wild child of her era, Bankhead turned interviews into spectacles, leaving audiences stunned with her outrageous quips and no-holds-barred honesty. She didn't just break the rules, she laughed in their faces. Let's step into the untamed world of Tallulah Bankhead, where her flamboyant persona was just as magnetic as her talent on screen. But what truly made her unforgettable was her fearless, unfiltered bluntness. Whether on camera or off, Bankhead spoke her truth loud and clear, shocking some, amusing others, and always making headlines. Her interviews were wild rides, packed with scandalous stories and jaw-dropping declarations. She refused to play nice with Hollywood's prim and proper image, becoming both the darling of gossip columns and a nightmare for studio publicists. Off-set, the legends only grew. Tales of her all-night parties and fearless indulgence in taboo pleasures cemented her place as one of Tinseltown's most unpredictable stars. On set, she was a force to be reckoned with. Directors, writers, and fellow actors often felt the sting of her cutting remarks, whether she was ripping apart a weak script or calling out a co-star's lackluster performance. Her boldness wasn't just shocking, it became Hollywood folklore. One of her most infamous moments? She reportedly once turned to a young actress and said, "Darling, I don't know what your talent is, but your legs are magnificent." In an era when such candor could end a career, Bankhead's daring words only amplified her legend. She wasn't trying to fit in, she was too busy lighting up the room and setting it on fire. Number 11. Marlene Dietrich, the smoldering diva with a dangerous edge. Marlene Dietrich wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature. With her smoky voice, enigmatic gaze, and daring style, she mesmerized audiences across the globe. But behind the shimmering Hollywood glamour was a woman who played by no one's rules but her own. Rumor has it, she once hurled a vase at a director who dared to question her vision, a dramatic moment that became the stuff of legend. Dietrich wasn't just a diva, she was a diva with bite. Her career thrived on seduction and mystery, but her real-life persona could be just as fierce as any role she played. In interviews, she made headlines with bold declarations that challenged the era's social norms. One unforgettable quote? "I dress for the image, not for myself, not for the public, not for fashion, and certainly not for men." She clashed with directors, argued with producers, and pushed back against anything that tried to box her in. That vase-throwing incident became a symbol of her unshakable commitment to artistic integrity. And it didn't stop there. Her co-stars, too, often felt the sting of her intensity. Whether it was a script she hated, a costume she refused to wear, or a performance she thought lacked spark, Dietrich never stayed silent. Her unwillingness to conform made her a Hollywood rebel, feared by some, admired by many, and unforgettable to all. 10. Rita Hayworth, the Gilded Cage. Rita Hayworth was the dream of a generation, Hollywood's ultimate siren. With her stunning beauty and magnetic presence, she seemed like the perfect star. But behind the dazzling smile and iconic roles was a woman quietly unraveling. The pressures of fame didn't just crack her image, they crushed her spirit. Hayworth's rise to stardom was nothing short of meteoric. She lit up the screen with elegance and sensuality, becoming the golden standard of glamour. But that spotlight came with a heavy price. Beneath the surface, Rita was fighting to hold herself together, caught in a tug-of-war between the flawless image the world adored and the deeply personal battles she faced behind closed doors. In rare interviews, she hinted at the weight of her fame, that her on-screen persona often blurred the lines of who she really was. The demands of constantly being Rita Hayworth, the Hollywood goddess, took an emotional toll. And soon that toll started to show. Whispers began to circulate on set. Directors and producers struggled with her frequent tardiness and lapses in focus. Scenes had to be res-hot. Tempers flared. Colleagues grew frustrated. What some called diva behavior was in truth a woman fraying at the seams. Her personal demons, battles with mental health and the scars of broken relationships, began seeping into her work. As the cameras rolled, Rita often struggled to meet expectations, and the once revered actress became labeled as difficult, even unprofessional. But those labels ignored the deeper truth. She was human, overwhelmed by a system that demanded perfection while offering no grace for vulnerability. As the years passed, her behavior became more erratic, her outbursts more frequent. What once were tabloid rumors became undeniable signs of a woman losing her grip. Rita Hayworth's life became a haunting reminder of the dark side of Hollywood, the glitz and glamour hiding the pain of a woman trapped in a gilded cage. 9. Vivien Leigh, the Tarnished Scarlet. Vivien Leigh, the dazzling beauty behind Gone with the Wind's iconic Scarlett O'Hara, was once the toast of Hollywood, yet behind her radiant smile was a woman slowly unraveling. Her life was a haunting mix of brilliance and tragedy, and the shadows of her personal demons would ultimately dim her star far too soon. Though her performance as Scarlett earned her global acclaim, Leigh's off-screen reality was far more turbulent. She battled intense mental health struggles, and those inner storms often spilled onto the set. Colleagues recalled unpredictable mood swings and emotional outbursts that strained relationships with co-stars and directors alike. What unfolded behind the scenes was a heartbreaking contrast to the polished elegance she portrayed on screen. In one revealing moment, Leigh once confessed, "I'm not a film star. I'm an actress. Being a film star is such a false life. lived for fake values and for publicity. Her words stripped away the illusion of Hollywood glamour, exposing the raw truth of someone who resented the very spotlight that made her famous. Her rejection of fame's superficiality set her apart, but it also alienated her in an industry built on illusion. In an era when mental health was neither understood nor treated with compassion, Lee's emotional battles were often misread as instability. As her private struggles continued to bleed into her professional life, they painted a tragic portrait of a gifted woman fighting silently against a world that expected her to shine no matter the cost. 8. Lucille Ball, the queen of comedy, with a sharp edge. When you think of Lucille Ball, you picture the hilarious redhead who made the world fall in love with her through laughter. But behind the curtain of comedy, there was a different side to Lucy, one with fire, sass, and a no-nonsense attitude. Buckle up, because this isn't just the story of America's funny girl. It's also about the fierce woman who demanded excellence and didn't hold back. Lucille Ball lit up the screen with her unmatched wit, but off-camera, whispers swirled. Some insiders claimed she could be blunt, perhaps even difficult. Her confidence and bold personality were unmistakable in interviews, where she never sugar-coated her thoughts. While fans adored her authenticity, some colleagues weren't always as charmed. Rumors told of tense moments on set, where Ball's perfectionism clashed with directors and co-stars. She knew what worked in comedy and wasn't afraid to speak up, sometimes too loudly for others' liking. Her high standards created magic on screen, but behind the scenes, they occasionally stirred friction. Some saw her assertiveness as brilliance, others as borderline arrogance. Still, no amount of backstage tension could dim her star. Lucille Ball's legacy as the queen of comedy remains rock solid. But Hollywood never forgets, and the stories of Lucy's sharp tongue and iron will continue to echo in the shadows of her unforgettable smile. Number 7. Faye Dunaway, the enigma drenched in sass. Faye Dunaway was more than just an actress, she was a force of nature. With performances as fiery as the rumors that followed her off-screen, Dunaway carved out a lane all her own in Hollywood. Known for her sharp wit and commanding presence, she was equal parts brilliance and boldness. But behind the camera, whispers swirled. The woman who gave Bonnie Parker her unforgettable edge wasn't always fond of the spotlight. In interviews, Dunaway came off as a fiercely dedicated artist, more concerned with craft than charm. Her passion for perfection was legendary, but so were the stories of her stern demeanor. Some insiders claimed she clashed with directors and co-stars, her assertiveness often misread as arrogance. Whether it was script disputes or creative differences, Dunaway never backed down. She demanded excellence, not just from others, but from herself. And that intensity, while sometimes polarizing, was the very thing that made her performances unforgettable. As time passed, her legacy became a mix of artistic triumphs and behind-the-scenes tension. But love her or loathe her, one thing was certain: Faye Dunaway wasn't here to play nice. She was here to leave a mark. And she did. Mae West, the one and only sensation. Mae West wasn't just a Hollywood star, she was a full-blown phenomenon. Known for her sultry one-liners and razor-sharp wit, West never held back, on screen or off. Legend has it she was once thrown out of a Hollywood party for being too provocative. Can you imagine? That's classic Mae. Let's step into the whirlwind world of Mae West, where boldness met brilliance and every move she made left a lasting impression on Tinseltown. Her career was a dazzling parade of charm, sass, and defiance. In an era when women were expected to play it safe, Mae made a name for herself by doing the exact opposite. Whether it was in interviews or casual conversation, West was unapologetically herself, dropping daring remarks and embracing a lifestyle that challenged every social norm. She was a trailblazer, a rule breaker, and sometimes a magnet for scandal. That infamous Hollywood party incident? The details are still shrouded in mystery, but it perfectly captured the essence of Mae: fearless, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. On set, she wasn't afraid to go toe-to-toe with directors or question the script if it didn't fit her bold vision. Some found her confidence exhilarating, others found it outrageous. But love her or not, one thing was certain: Mae West rewrote the rules of Hollywood, one provocative line at a time. 5. Jean Harlow, the blonde bombshell with a temper. Jean Harlow wasn't just Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, she was a firecracker wrapped in silk. Behind the platinum curls and dazzling smile was a woman known just as much for her explosive temper as her magnetic on-screen presence. Rumors swirled about fiery clashes with directors and co-stars, with one infamous story claiming she once hurled a prop phone at a crew member during a heated confrontation. Harlow was a true diva in every sense of the word, bold, brash, and unapologetically herself. Her fierce personality lit up not only the screen but also the sound stages of Golden Age Hollywood. She didn't just play the part of a strong woman, she lived it. In interviews, she came off as fearless, often challenging the rigid expectations placed on women of her era. Her blunt honesty and refusal to conform made her a symbol of rebellion, but also earned her a reputation as vulgar among critics and peers. She didn't shy away from conflict either. Harlow was known to confront directors over script choices and openly critique fellow actors if their performances didn't meet her high standards. She demanded excellence, and wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers to get it. Though her life was tragically cut short, Jean Harlow's legacy endures. The stories of her temper, her tenacity, and her refusal to be tamed are forever etched into the mythology of Hollywood. And honestly, it's that fire that made her unforgettable. Number 4. Greta Garbo, the silent enigma. Greta Garbo. A name wrapped in mystery, a face that defined an era, and a voice that chose silence over stardom. She was the Hollywood icon who famously shunned the spotlight. Yet behind that cool exterior, whispers of diva behavior swirled like smoke on a studio lot. Legend has it, Garbo insisted on fresh flowers delivered to her dressing room every single day. Aesthetic? Certainly. Excessive? Maybe. But it was all part of the mystique. Garbo wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature. Her allure was built on that unbreakable wall of privacy, that haunting line, "I want to be alone." It wasn't just a movie quote, it became her life's mantra. Some say it was her way of protecting her peace, others say it reflected a deeper emotional distance she kept from the world around her. Still, behind the scenes, her perfectionism became legend. Rumors flew of intense disagreements with directors and co-stars, all because Garbo refused to settle for anything less than her artistic truth. To some, that was bravery. To others, pure boldness. But whether you see her as a misunderstood genius or a complicated prima donna, one thing's for sure, Greta Garbo didn't just act in films. She became the myth that every mystery in Hollywood wanted to be. Number 3. Joan Crawford, the glamour queen with a bite. Joan Crawford wasn't just a movie star, she was a force of nature. Fierce, flawless, and famously particular. According to Hollywood lore, she once ordered an entire film set to be torn down and rebuilt because the lighting didn't flatter her face. Now that's commitment to the craft. But Crawford's legacy isn't just about glitz and glamour. Behind the dazzling image was a woman who demanded excellence, and wasn't afraid to fight for it. Her rise to fame was a masterclass in reinvention, transforming from a struggling dancer into one of Hollywood's most iconic leading ladies. But with that success came a reputation, one carved from equal parts talent, toughness, and tempest. In interviews, Crawford came across as unapologetically bold. She refused to conform to traditional expectations, especially those placed on women. "I never go outside unless I look like Joan Crawford, the movie star," she once declared. "If you want to see the girl next door, go next door." That wasn't arrogance. That was armor. Stories from the set painted a picture of a perfectionist. Some called it being difficult, others, dedication. She clashed with directors, challenged co-stars, and didn't hesitate to voice her opinion if she thought something wasn't up to par. One infamous tale tells of her hurling a prop phone at a crew member during a heated dispute, a moment that became symbolic of her fiery spirit. Joan Crawford wasn't just a diva, she defined what it meant to be one. Even after her passing, the echoes of her intensity, drive, and unrelenting standards remain etched in Hollywood's memory. Katharine Hepburn, the original unapologetic star. Katharine Hepburn didn't just act, She made being unapologetic an art form. With a fiery independence and a total disregard for Hollywood's rulebook, Hepburn left directors and co-stars stunned, sometimes even rattled. One line she was rumored to repeat often was, "I'm a personality as well as an actress. Show me an actress who isn't a personality, and I'll show you a woman who isn't a star." Welcome to the world of Katharine Hepburn, where boldness wasn't just a trait, it was a way of life. On screen, she played strong-willed, unforgettable characters. Off-screen, she lived with the same tenacity and fearless honesty. Hepburn challenged societal norms not only in the roles she chose but in the life she led, refusing to conform to expectations. "If you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun," she once said, and she meant it. Her legendary clashes with directors and co-stars weren't signs of arrogance, but a deep commitment to her craft and an unshakable belief in staying true to herself. Some called her difficult. Others saw her for what she truly was, a force of nature blazing her own path through Hollywood. Number 2. Katharine Hepburn, the woman who redefined unapologetic. Katharine Hepburn didn't just play strong women, she was one. Unapologetic wasn't just a word to her, it was a way of life. With her razor-sharp wit and fierce independence, Hepburn broke all the rules Hollywood tried to set for her, and she did it with style. She didn't just ruffle feathers, she stirred the whole nest. As she once boldly declared, "I'm a personality as well as an actress. Show me an actress who isn't a personality, and I'll show you a woman who isn't a star." Let's dive into the whirlwind world of Hepburn, where her fearless attitude lit up the screen and shook up the studios. Off-camera, she was just as headstrong as the iconic characters she portrayed. Her disregard for Hollywood's expectations made her both a trailblazer and, to some, a royal pain to work with. Her interviews were full of rebellious gems that showed she didn't just act the part, she lived it. For Hepburn, life was meant to be lived on her own terms. "If you obey all the rules," she once quipped, "you miss all the fun." And miss the fun she did not. Her clashes with directors and co-stars were the stuff of legend. Some called her difficult, others, a force of nature. But one thing's for sure, Katharine Hepburn never played by the rules, and that's exactly what made her unforgettable.